World Golf Village Resort sold for $24 million. One of St. Johns County's largest and most recognizable hotels has a new owner. The World Golf Village Renaissance St. Augustine Resort has sold for $24.25 million in a deal that officially closed on July 3rd, according to county records. The new owner is Sun Development and Management Corporation, an Indianapolis-based hotel operator that completed the purchase through St. Augustine Lodging Associates, LLC. The company has a coast-to-coast portfolio and now owns 4 hotel properties in Florida, including this latest acquisition. The seller was Atrium Finance 4, based out of Phoenix. The 267,000 square foot resort first opened in 1998, coinciding with the early growth of the World Golf Village area. Since then, the region has rapidly developed, now home to high traffic destinations like Bass Pro Shop, Buc-ee's, and Costco, we frequent frequently. While the resort itself remains operational, much of the surrounding area is in transition. The World Golf Hall of Fame and IMAX Theater have both closed, and the PGA Tour Productions facility next door is now vacant following the tour's relocation to its new headquarters in Ponte Vedra. Now, St. Johns County officials are working to determine what comes next for the area. There's more than 110,000 square feet of usable space and 36 acres of land now available for potential redevelopment. The county has issued a request for proposals inviting developers to pitch ideas for the future of the property. As redevelopment plans begin to take shape, the recent hotel sale marks a new chapter for one of St. Johns County's most iconic tourism anchors.
All right. First off, we did not buy it. It's not our company. All right. So
we're not based out of Indianapolis.
Yeah. We knew it was out there. It's going to have to go through some renovations to keep its flag, which is very important. Old man move. And so it's not our company that purchased this. I'm excited because it really does need that facelift. So we're hoping the new owners comes in and brings up that area.
Yep.
But we do have Commissioner Sarah Arnold in here. She's not allowed, and I'm going to defend your inability to talk about certain things because you're in a blackout period. There's an RFP out, which means you can't really openly discuss exactly what's going on. You can't give any details. So we have to be kind of cautious in how we respond to some of those questions. So if she seems a little vague, it's for a good reason.
She's required.
Yes, she's required. But this is an exciting purchase. We can talk about this purchase, not so much about the RFP. Okay. But this is an exciting purchase. And welcome, Commissioner
Thank
Arnold.
you. Thank you for having me.
And Sneakers. So Sneakers wants to join in any of the answers.
Sneakers
Feel
getting
free.
drowsy.
So what is this with the county and what you see kind of, it's almost in a redevelopment out there. Do you see this as a positive, and have you had contact with the new owners through the county?
I have not directly had contact with the new owners, but have been in contact with our economic development team. It's very exciting. To me, it's kind of one of the first pieces of the puzzle. You're exactly right. It does need renovations. It does need to be brought up to a higher level. And my understanding is the new owners intend to do just that. As far as the RFP, as you mentioned, I can't really talk about it because if I were to tell you some of the more exciting things that could potentially come, it would potentially disqualify them. And so I will say that through surveys and through board meetings that the community has been very decisive on what they want to see out there, as has the board. So I think we're going to get some really exciting proposals, and I'm really excited for the potential and the future of that area.
Right. Our convention center kind of sits in this hotel. How does that relationship with the county and the new owners, do you see that strengthening? Because I mean, I felt like it was always a little underutilized, but where it was at location wise, people want to be in the historic or near the beach. So it's always been a challenge having the convention center that far out. With this new ownership, is the convention center also part of the conversation between the county and the what is it, the EDC?
Yes, absolutely. In regards to location, I think the other struggle we've had with the convention center is its size. It's actually a bit too small to get some of the larger events that we would really like to see come to St. Johns County. And so I think there's talks about expansion.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's so hard to compete with Orlando. Orlando is, I think, it's either the largest or the second largest. I think there might be something. I think Vegas might be one in the entire United States.
Mhm.
And it makes it real tough to compete against them, against some of these other big conventions. But I want to shift gears. We're talking about, it sounds like it's a cloak of secrecy, but it's not. Sunshine laws.
Yes.
Okay, I want to talk about that because the airport authority is really in a tough situation right now, and there's some challenges going on out there. What is something that you found the most challenging with the sunshine laws? I talked actually a little bit about it on Bollocks with Lenny last night. He thought New York had some sunshine. They didn't have anything compared to what we got in Florida.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges, like, when you first went in as a commissioner, like, oh, I can't talk to him, or her, so tell me some of those things of where you really have to be cautious in some conversations.
Absolutely. So we can talk to each other, but those conversations are typically restricted to, faith, family, and football.
Mm-hmm.
What we can't discuss is anything that could potentially come before the board that requires a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And while I think it's very important, I know back in the 70s when Sunshine was first enacted, it was because of backroom deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in government, transparency is everything. And hearing, from the public on every decision we make is vital to the process. That being said, it does make us a little bit inefficient because everything has to be discussed every other Tuesday, in the public. And so it's hard. It makes things a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's an important part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's unique, though, that it's only at the local level in Florida. It's not at the state level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little different.
Yeah, I mean, because, Dylan and I, and Dylan's going to be doing an interview with me because we're opening in city of St. Augustine Beach. We're very close friends. And you were on the board with me with the TDC too. Yeah. And we're in normal conversation and someone will come up and start talking about it. And then, one of us will have to go, okay, one of us has to walk away. We can't have the same, and it, and that's just one topic. That's just tourism. Like, you're a county commissioner. If you're standing with another commissioner and someone comes up to you, you guys got to go.
Absolutely. And
Like
it's
magnet flips.
Yeah. And it's really difficult, as you said, because there can be specific projects that are smaller in scope and scale, and not to talk about that. But if we're talking about something as broad as, what you want to see in World Golf Village or traffic or infrastructure, it's difficult to know where to draw the line sometimes.
Yeah. So, the budget's going on right now. Huge budget. I mean, it's a, $1 billion budget. And you've been a commissioner for how long?
3 years.
3 years. All right. You've been a commissioner for 3 years. So this is your third cycle going through the budget. What's different about this budget?
Fourth, actually.
Yeah. What's different about this budget than some of the previous budgets? Because it seems like things have really tightened up at the federal and state level. And, so that always trickles down because you have those unfunded mandates. If the state doesn't cover it, now you got to cover it. So what has been one of the biggest challenges with this budget cycle because it goes into effect October 1. So you guys are right in the middle of the heart of trying to figure everything out.
We are. It's looking at every last penny we can find for infrastructure. We took a hit this year. In the past 2 years, we've gotten $127 million in funding, both combined from state and the federal government. And this year, when the governor signed the budget, it looks like we're getting about 1.5.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference. And people ask, well, where are you going to find the money? I don't know that we can. It just means that certain projects that we need to
be pushed
have to be pushed back. These things won't happen. And so, rolling up our sleeves, we're looking at everything. I'm concerned about, as you said, some of the unfunded mandates. There's one that's come down for fire rescue. That's not a mandate, but our fire department's pushing pretty hard and to go to a different style work week, make sure that their health and safety is prioritized. So that comes with a big price tag.
And they have 3 new, we had the chief in 2 weeks ago, right? And they have like 3 new stations coming on board to basically, because our population's growing so fast.
Absolutely.
So that I can understand that one being a tough one.
A huge one. And with the new parks that we're building,
Mhm.
you know, it's just making sure that we can pay our bills.
Yeah.
So
you can build them, but you can't keep
staff
them running.
them or run them.
So
Exactly. And, you know, this is a growing community that has growing needs. And I think that our residents have a certain lifestyle expectation, and it's up to us to meet that each and every day.
All right. You're in District 2.
Mhm.
All right. So that's the southwest portion. I'm trying to coordinate. This is how you do it from DeLand to your southwest.
Bottom left.
Yeah. You're in the southwest. So Hastings, and they've got a lot of fun stuff like citizen initiatives that are really picking that up. Tell me a little bit about like your background in your area, and you have a puppy. It's not even you're a puppy, but you have like 14 other animals. So we want to know a little bit about you and where you live and why you chose to represent District 2.
Absolutely. Thank you. So my husband and I both grew up in South Jacksonville and Mandarin, but I spent every summer with my family down in Crescent. And so when we had kids, we moved to St. Johns County. About my daughter. So about 17 years ago. First started off on the island, then went up to 210 and finally landed on our little piece of heaven off County Road 13.
Nice.
So we have about 7 acres. We've got cows, we've got goats, chickens, an extra dog,
bonus dog for the time being,
bunnies, you name it. But it reminded me of home. It reminded us of where we grew up. Mandarin doesn't look the same anymore. And as you can tell, St. Johns County is starting to look a little different these days.
Yep.
And so it was important to us to preserve that way of life.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
We've got a question from the audience. Can all the BCC gather together outside their normal meeting times and discuss matters, or is it only allowed in scheduled meetings?
Matters that are going to come before the board that could potentially take a vote can only take place in scheduled meetings.
Okay.
But we all eat lunch together.
Yeah.
So again, you stick to faith, family, football. Don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
If anyone brings up construction, stop talking.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things you guys take probably the most shots from is overdevelopment.
Yep.
And a lot of these things that are come in front of you have already gotten so far down the line, there's not a lot you can do, and you get beat up for decisions that happened 25 years ago.
Yeah.
How do you manage that and still try and keep the balance of keeping the quality of life that we have here? So that to me is where you're sitting. It frustrates me because I see it and go, that's from 15 years ago. These guys didn't do this.
Yeah.
And then if you turn it down, it becomes a lawsuit, and then you lose more money for the county, because you have taken away owners' rights. So it's such a tough, tight rope to walk. Kind of explain that process when you have someone that's like, all right, let's just try and get the best we possibly can. You know it's going to get approved, but let's get the best. How do you get that out to the public? Like, we really can't do a whole lot here. So
it's difficult. It's difficult getting that message across. The example I've been using the most recently is the Super Walmart that's coming off of IGP in my district. That was entitled when I was in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
And trying to explain that to people, I think that resonates a little bit, and explain to them that it's not going to create more traffic. It's actually going to capture the trips that are already there because we're driving elsewhere to go to Walmarts or other stores. But it's difficult getting that message out, and some people just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But laws are laws and property rights are property rights. And let's say we said no to Walmart. Well, then they're going to send their attorneys down here and they're going to whoop the county up and your taxes are going to go up.
Yeah.
So it's difficult sometimes, dealing with the bag that we have, navigating that and educating our population that, sometimes our hands are tied is difficult. We recently had a development come forward, again, was already entitled. It was called Title 210, I believe. And our buttons up on the dais are a yes button and a no button. But in this situation, it was really, they were saying, we're entitled to do this, and here are 2 other options. So it was, good, better, best.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. It's, difficult explaining that we didn't just vote for more of something. We actually voted for a reduction of something.
Yeah.
But we had to vote either way.
Yeah.
Because they're going to build either way.
You had to get the best for what's here, and a lot of people don't see. Okay, they were getting the best, and no was not really an option.
Yeah.
I don't think they call them PUDs anymore, but the DRIs versus the PUDs. The PUDs are the smaller ones that are like under 1,000 rooftops, and the DRIs. I've always said DRIs are much better for us than the PUDs, and that because we can get things like fire station land, school land, park land, road infrastructure. PUDs, you're pretty much limited to impact fees, and that's it. How do you fight against that? Because I've seen developers go, I'm going to do 4 PUDs instead of doing 1 DRI, and then they're saving themselves millions, but they're costing us residents. So when someone new comes in like that, how do you defend that for the people that already live here?
So DRIs aren't a thing anymore. The ones that we're seeing are already on the books. I would say that the PUDs are more of a patchwork quilt. And so we don't get, as you said, some of the infrastructure that we need, but the DRIs, the size just scares people. And I don't blame them. You hear the numbers of, 5,000 units, 10,000 units, and that's scary. That's a huge impact. And then you see the land cleared. Again, it gives you pause, but long-term and for good planning purposes, DRIs made the most sense. As you said, you get the most benefit. The community does. So it's just the size and scope that scares people, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
All right. You were very instrumental. I believe you were chair at the time. The Black History Museum. You're still very instrumental in the Black History Museum. You got a great team over there. We received, I think, $1 million. That was for planning. And what was the $1 million that we received from the state? And how much more do you think we're going to need? Because, this is a huge project.
This is a massive project. The 1 million was huge to get. We fought tooth and nail for that. It's for planning, design, and engineering, which we were going to hit the ground running on, because I want to be sure that when we go back to the state next year for funding, we've got at least $1 million to match. I want to prove to them that we haven't lost the momentum, that people are still very excited and to see this come to fruition here, that it is the right place. It was always the right place. And I'm just so excited to see it become a reality. But get ready, y'all. I'm coming to fundraise. Yeah. Everybody who wrote a support letter and said, come back when you need a check.
I thought the letter was fine. All right. The impact of that in West Augustine is going to be huge. Do we have an approximate timeline on when that could possibly be?
Not as of yet. Like I said, they just signed the budget. So as soon as we can get that money, like I said, we're going to hit the ground rolling. It doesn't come with a ton of restraints. And so my goal is, at least, until the state gets more heavily involved, is to keep everything as hyper local as possible. So when we look at who our designers are going to be, our engineers, our planners, I hope that our community stands up and wants to get engaged.
All right. And the land that it's proposed to be on is owned by Florida Memorial still, right?
Yes.
Is the lease already in place, or that conversation already in place? Because we're putting in, could be an $80 million project on something that might not be owned by St. Johns County. That makes me a little nervous. Okay, that makes me a little nervous unless there's like a huge, 3 consecutive 30-year leases. You always hear about 99-year leases. Those can't be defended.
Yeah.
So you can defend 3 30-year leases.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I don't know why. It's a legal thing. So that, to me, should be the biggest conversation that's going on right now, is how do we secure that land for an extended period of time? Because as a business person, you want me to write a check, I want you to own it for a long time. I don't want it to be going to someone else. How is that conversation going, and is that something that gives you concern?
Not the slightest. No,
Okay.
I believe it's a 99-year lease.
Okay.
And again, even though it's in St. Johns County, it's not actually St. Johns County's museum. It's the state museum.
It's the state, yeah.
And so it's really going to be their asset.
Okay. So the state would have the asset. It wouldn't be at St. Johns County. Okay. I didn't understand.
It's a state museum. So yes, they would ultimately be the people in charge. So but it's hard to navigate because they've never actually built from the ground up, from conception to construction, a state museum. They've always taken over a different one, or it was a pre-existing space.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no playbook for
They've
it.
always retrofitted. And,
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Never from the ground up.
I know a guy who's done that.
Where is the location for the museum?
And you want to answer that?
Yes, it's on the former Florida Memorial property down 214.
Okay.
So intersection of Holmes and King Street.
Yeah, where the archway used to be, it got moved to the other side.
It's on that corner.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
where it moved from. So
that's where the museum will be.
A little bit further down, but yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's on, because they did at one point own all four corners.
Okay.
Matter of fact, Florida Memorial still owns the land that the park's on.
All right.
I think the county owns where the fire station is, but the Florida Memorial still owns where the park's at.
Okay.
And that's a long-term lease.
All right.
And also where the Canwright House is at.
The Canwright House, yes.
Which you were instrumental in.
Yeah, the Canwright House was a fun project. When you see a house coming across 312, it was even for my wild and crazy career, it was one of those things. Well, that's a first.
A house on the bridge.
It literally took up like the entire bridge. We measured it.
So wild.
We had about 1.5 feet on each side. And it took up and it was really a fun project.
That's such a cool project.
I'm so excited the way it turned out. We had great contractors.
It looks great.
That we had good weather the day we moved. There were so many things that could have went poorly.
Well, that's because the weatherman was there.
The weatherman. Yeah, we only took out one mailbox.
That was a
one house for one mailbox.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Well, we took down several mailboxes and put them back up. We had a team that was literally just in front of it because it wasn't moving real fast in the neighborhood. So they take the mailbox out.
Oh, they're showing it. Look.
The house, there it is right there. There it is right there. The house, we didn't back up traffic at all.
Look at that traffic report.
So, but it was
the jerk with the house guy.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, I'm at the bottom of the bridge going, okay, just stay together. Just stay together. But I mean, it actually was amazing.
Yeah.
The movers had it so boxed in and secured.
That's so cool.
But it's beautiful. And Parks and Rec's done a great job of keeping everything up with it. So it's kind of one of those little proud moments. That
I drove past it today.
Yeah. So.
It looks great in the morning.
All right. The other thing, and I preach about this, and I think you guys kind of just said, Troy, we know, stop talking about this, but I'm going to pound on it again. Commercial versus residential, the percentages were way out of whack, and we've been out of whack for a while. And we thought we were doing okay, and then all of a sudden it went in a different direction again after a lot of people from up north moved down again after something happened in 2020.
The thing we don't talk about.
2020 that, so the residential went back up again. How do you battle that percentage? Because I think, are we at 13% commercial?
I think it's a little bit higher than that.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
But not by much.
Yeah.
We're way out of whack.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because, with that thing that happened in 2020, all of our housing costs skyrocketed. So it's even more difficult to get businesses enticed to come to St. Johns County when their workers can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge, but the chamber's been instrumental in working with the county, and we're hoping to come up with some really good solutions. It's also about finding the land. There's not a ton of industrial zoned land in St. Johns County.
Mm-hmm.
So
another hot topic, and I don't know exactly what you guys can do, is the smelly neighborhood.
Smelly cat, we got to bring it up.
The smelly neighborhood. And then I heard, what activist Aaron Brockovich is now involved, and love the movie.
Yep.
What is it? I don't know what kind of teeth you guys have in this situation. Have a sympathetic heart, but I mean, I don't know exactly what you can do from where you're sitting, and I know you're taking a lot of shots from this, but how is it? What are you able to do in this situation? Because I was sitting there going, you can let Sneakers down on the ground.
Yeah, she'll be fine.
He wants to explore. If he starts chewing on wires, that means the show's over anyway. But what do you have that you can do to ease some of this residential pain? Because I mean, it's a real thing. And the house, I think the plant was there before the houses were there for the most part, which kind of makes it a real challenge.
It's a huge challenge. I think that while the plant was there, I'm not sure that they were doing the biosolids at the time. I think that kind of came online at the same time that the housing development did. It's tough. I wish we had more teeth. I wish we could do more. It's really not our jurisdiction. We did grant the special use permit, and when they were out of compliance with that, we held them to it. Beyond that, I know that the neighbors have now filed a class action lawsuit, and we've told them, as commissioners, we'll do anything we can to support you. So, but it's a very tough situation.
The only other time I remember a situation like this was the aluminum plant down on US 1. And before houses got down there, that aluminum plant, I don't know what it's called now, but it's changed names a couple times. But they do drops, like aluminum drops. And when they do the drop, it is loud.
Yeah.
They do drops in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
But those houses weren't there. And when, they purposely put it away from everyone and tried to be.
And everyone grew around
and
it.
everyone came to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this one was a lot closer in time frame. But that's the only other situation where I was like, oh, I wouldn't want to live there. But, and realtors aren't always honest that, hey, around the corner, and it might not, you make sure you go a day it doesn't smell. And then that's what some of these realtors are doing. Which just isn't right.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay. But again, it's a challenge. Where I lived up off 210, they have 2 truck stops there, and it's super busy with the semis every morning. And now houses have built around there. There's a school, and everybody complains about the truck traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says, well, no, they were here first.
Yeah.
So if you build it, they will come, and that's been the problem.
Ad valorem dollars. I heard that the school district's talking about possibly moving theirs, which moves the scale for everyone. Which also is another thing that puts pressure on you guys, and you have zero to do with it. Ad valorem dollars, what percentage of our county budget of that $1 billion is ad valorem? Do you have any idea? Because that's I know that's the biggest chunk.
Yeah, the majority of it.
It's the biggest chunk is on our property taxes.
Yep. We have some enterprise funds, and then we have some carry forwards, but that's our biggest one.
When it comes to a situation like this, because you guys are going to take the shots, and the school district looks like they're going to do a little bump. Do you have some crossover conversations with meetings saying, hey, us kind of think this through right now? Because we are in a recession. And yeah, Sneakers isn't happy with us right now. It's like
No.
in this show. We are.
It doesn't like raising taxes.
Yeah.
No. We don't
I'm
like it
sorry,
either.
Sneakers, we brought up taxes at all. So how is that managed, that communication between you and the school board?
I pride myself in having a really good relationship with our school board members. I can pick up the phone and call any one of them, and have on many occasions, so that we can work more collaboratively. I'm encouraged with their new superintendent choice, Dr. Brennan Asplin, who has been on our infrastructure delivery team with the county. So there's already been a lot more of that relationship building, which is the only way, in my opinion, to govern. So
Yeah, we had Brendan in
Last month.
It was
Yeah.
Tim's last day, his first day on the situation. So, and it was nice having somebody who's familiar, just stepping in and doing that. The other thing I have is CRAs. We've had some successful CRAs. We've had some stalled CRAs, and we've had some, I don't know which way to call them. Can you give us an update and tell us what a CRA is, and tell us some of the updates on those CRAs and why they exist?
So the CRAs are community redevelopment agencies, and we have 3 that operate within the county. There's one in Flagler Estates, there's one in Volano, and there's one in West Augustine. And they sunset after 25 or 30 years. I know we're coming up on the end, and it's going to be really interesting to see which CRAs want to re-up, their TIF dollars and their charter. So we've had a lot of success. I think, as you said, some of them have stalled. It really comes again to a cohesive board. There's a little more turmoil, I'd say, down at the Flagler Estates one, whereas the one in West Augustine is a well-oiled machine, and man, they do not stop. So,
all right. Anything we've left out? Because we're kind of coming towards the end here.
no, I'm I'm just so excited to be here. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you letting me bring in our little friend,
Our rescue.
our rescue, to give us some exposure on the pet center. So, but no, this is great.
We had Ty's therapy dog was a rescue dog.
Yeah.
And his name was Meatball. And he's the most ridiculous dog we ever had. And he was a loving dog, and he would get himself into mischief, and then he would go over and he'd lean against Ty. So, and we got him at the, I mean, this is when the first, it might have been one of the first 10 rescues out of the new pet center.
Oh, wow.
You know, Paul had just opened it, and it was, but it was the very first sentence Ty ever said. And he goes, he was like 3 years old, and he goes, the puppy's really happy. We're like, taking her home. Taking her home.
That's a great story.
That's our dog.
Yeah. And it was a boxer lab mix, which, is just all love, no brains.
Yeah. Calm as can be.
Yeah.
Completely
all love, no
chaos.
brains. And Meatball was a handful, but he loved Ty. So, and Ty loved him.
Meatball's the perfect name for a boxer lab mix.
Well, and Blake, you want to tell how Meatball became Meatball's name? Microphone's nice. I know you're a production guy.
You're working very hard.
It was actually because of the NASA logo, because everyone calls the NASA logo the meatball. So
it wasn't because of the food.
Okay.
Blake's love for space at that time
Very cool.
took over, and we're like, oh, okay, that fits. Like we all looked at him and went, yep,
Definitely a meatball.
Definitely meatball.
It's a meatball.
Perfect.
So. Well, thank you so much for coming in. We got to have you back anytime you want to come in, and you have any announcements due. Keeping our eye on that Black History Museum. When we start to get some of those planning, maybe you can bring in some of those people, and we can have a great conversation about that too.
That would be great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.